Hello! Today I'm going to show you the process of creating React app with all the backend features. Even if you are a rookie in React, you will be able to follow the same steps to build your own site. I will use React hooks for handling state, the platform named Directual for backend, and the boilerplate code for React. So, that is what we'll get at the end of this tutorial. This is my to-watch and watched movie lists. I want my friends to be able to recommend me a movie. But before that, user have to sign up and then sign in. The registered user can fulfill the form, which requires a little information like title, year is an optional property, and a small comment. The system, having received the form response, enriches it with information about movie poster, director, actors list, and the plot. Then, I can log in as an admin, and then, being an admin, I can rate films and move them from one list to the other. For example, let's rate this movie, Alien. I like it, so the mark is 5. Excellent. Alright, now we can find it in watched list. Here it is. And the app automatically posts on Twitter my thanks to the person who has recommended me a movie. So, let's go throughout the whole process. I'll cover all the details, making common mistakes and correcting them. At the end we'll get the production-ready Docker container.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
To get up and running quickly, we will clone the React template from the Directual repository. We go to Directual.com, Integrations Catalog, React, and find here the link to GitHub repository. Here we see step-by-step manual. There are two options: to start from scratch and to add features to an existing app. Our option is the first. To begin with, we make a new directory for the project. Let's name it Example App. Alright, go to the new folder and clone the repo by type git clone and the repo address. That is it. Now go to the new folder, type in cd. OK, and let's try to start the project. Of course, we shall install all the dependencies before. Type in npm install and download all the dependencies. Usually that process takes some time. OK, now we can start the project. Type in npm start. And here we see on localhost 3000 a simple website with several pages with examples of getting data, posting data, and a simple login form. Fine, next step, let's connect the backend part. We go to the platform, then sign in or sign up if we haven't had an account. Let's check the manual once again. We should create an API key. Firstly, we create an application. Let's call it My Movie List. OK, go to the application and to the API section, the one with a plug icon. OK, create a new API key in that section. Copy the key to clipboard. Check the instruction one more time. And now we shall edit the env file. We go to VS Code, open the env file, and paste our API key that we have just copied. Now, what's next in the manual? We need to restart the app. So, Ctrl+C to stop, and npm start to launch. Fine. Now the app is connected to the backend. We can add a new user. Go to the manual. That is the third step. Then go to the platform, to the database section. Here we see a data structure named app users, system name web users. Add an object. The main fields for us are ID, it's the username and the password. Let's use the word God.
Alright, what are the three most common used passwords?
Love, secret, and sex. But not in that order necessarily, right?
Yeah, but don't forget God. System operators love to use God. It's that whole male ego thing.
Convert it with MD5 at once. Passwords are stored encrypted. Save and let's try to sign in. Enter the username and the password. Alright, now we see new pages, private ones and some private content. Now let's sign out and add a role to the user. The standard one, admin. Now check. Sign in using the same username and password. And now the new hidden pages appeared. And this content is visible for admin only. We'll figure out how it works a bit later. Now let's have a look at what we have in the template. Open the VS Code and explore the files. Here they are, index.js, the standard one, inserting app. App.js, this is routine settings. Pages, its content, and visibility rules. Okay, then pages, admin page is empty, login page. The form for signing in, based on React hooks. Page 1, the example of getting data from the database based on hooks. Page 2, the example of posting data to the base. And page 3, the example of hidden content. And here we see how to use class components here. We don't need it now. Okay, and the empty private page. Also we have components. The component main menu. Okay, that is the list with links, the header of the website, and the login logout button. Here it is. It depends on the authorized session. And the last component, the loader, simple CSS loader. So the template is not complicated at all. Let's have a look at the parts of the future application. The main part will be the list of watched movies. The similar piece is the list with movies to watch, with rating features, then signing up and signing in, and the form for submitting the recommendation, the mechanism for enriching data using third-party API, and as a bonus, integration with Directual.
Wax on, wax off. Breathe in through nose, out the mouth.
Okay, let's go. Let's start from the main menu. We are commenting the piece of code that we don't need in the template. Rename the home page. It will be watched list. And then add a couple of pages. The list to watch with the path to watch. Okay, alright. And one more link. The link to submission form. Okay, let's add a logo type before the menu. We'll type just my movie list and make it prettier with CSS. We'll add the class name logo to that element. Yes, that works correctly. And let's configure the CSS file. We see the standard CSS here, we can change it. Let's create a hacker style look with a dark background, light color, and monospace font. That would be cool. Yeah, great. And the menu will be green. Let's add a style for logo type. We are creating the selector. Let's make it bold and bigger, say 32 pixels. Okay, great. And add the space between the logo type and the menu. Okay, great, 60 pixels. And now we are configuring the style for the menu itself. We'll change the color to bright green, chartreuse, remove the borders, we don't need them, and add the standard text decoration underline. It would be prettier. Here it is the special class active. In the menu we use a nav-link component from React Router DOM. It means that the active menu item automatically has that class active. And we'll change the background color and the color of the text for selected items this way. Okay, and we'll fix the font weight. It would be pretty if it would be bold and a little bigger. We'll add some padding here. And the border radius 5 pixels. Okay, alright. That's great. And the last thing, we will remove the text decoration underlying for current items. Perfect. Okay, let's make more minor improvements. We'll rename the menu item to recommend me a movie. And here is a little typo. Alright. Let's edit the general CSS file, app.css, make body dark as well. Background color gray, dark gray. Okay, and let's color the buttons. The color will be bright green. Remove the border and make the color of the text dark gray. Okay, good. And we need to make the text inside the body white, almost white. Okay, perfect. And we need to make style for loader as well. So we change the blue color to bright green 3 times. And the color of text, let's make it light gray. No, it would be better if it was white. Okay, let's configure routing. We open app.js. Let's remove or comment pieces of code that we don't need from the template. And here is the path of the second page. Add simple root because the page is public. It is not private. Let's remove the components, which were the content of the pages. And we need to add one more private page with the path added. That is a page where you can submit the recommendation. It should be private. Only registered users will be able to recommend movies. Then let us add some content for testing. Just a couple of phrases. Okay, that works. And let's check the private page. Okay, it redirects to login page. Perfect, that works. Okay, next, let us add the link to registration in menu, in header. We are typing link to register. The link should start with uppercase because that is the component from the library React Router DOM. We are importing that link. Just register. Okay, and let it be the button, standard button. We have composed styles for the buttons for the whole site. Okay, and the exception. We have missed the equal sign. Okay, and one more exception. That is a problem with the closing tag. Okay, fixed. Super. Register. And next we shall add one more link in the page login.js near the login button. We have to add wrapper div because we are working with JSX. And here we have added link. And surely we should import that component link from React Router DOM. Okay, it works as well. And let's fix the styling for all the links. In the project, let them be green chartreuse. Okay, good. Then we are creating pages, the files for that. The first page will be mylist.js. We can see the example of getting data from the database, page 1, and let's just copy the code. The main constructions are already here. We will rename the component, functional component, mylist, and edit the header. Let us type movies that I have watched. Okay, the second page for the lists of movies that I'm going to watch JS, it is identical, almost identical. And surely we have type to watch.js. Okay, good. Renaming the component and editing the header of the file, the header of the page. Movies to watch. And we need one more page for posting data, add.js, for submitting the recommendations. And we can use constructions from page 2, from the example page 2. And we are editing the name of the component as well and the header. Recommendation, recommend me a movie. And now we go to app.js, to the routing, and we are going to add components, content components to the pages. First of all, we shall import the components from the pages that we have just created. Add movie from add, then my list from my list, and to watch from to watch. Okay, and let's add these components to the pages here. Content component to watch, component my list, and here component add movie. That is it. It works. There is one more page to add, the register page. Creating the file register.js, and that is the page for standard adding posting data, so we can copy the basic code from add.js, rename the component, let's add the header, register, and we go to app.js and we need to edit routing, so that is the public page, register, importing the component register from pages, register, okay, alright, a little bit later we'll configure the page. Let's look at the app on behalf of authorized user. We are signing in and see that we need to remove the register button for authorized users. We can see the example of private content in page 3. Here in menu we see how we connect to auth context, authorized context, and we can add here the condition. We can check the basic file from the template auth.js and see the methods, and one of the methods is authorized. It provides the information whether the user has been signed in or has not. And here we're creating such a conditional. Check, okay, that works. Logging out, and we see the button register. So it's time for magic. We will get the data from the database.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Okay, we are going to the page My List and see here we are connecting to Directual API, and these parameters are endpoint and the database structure. Let's see what is it. Here in the database section we see different tables, data structures. Let's create new one. We'll name it movies. Here we are, and configure the fields of the new table. We see the only one field, ID. Let's create a new group of fields, new group of properties, movie details. And we are adding some, including title, type of string, year, type of number, then user ID, that is the connection with the user who has added the recommendation. That would be useful if we added that field to the separate group. And that field user ID is a link, and we should choose the structure to be linked to. Okay, let's continue. Year, then director, the simple string field, actors, the string as well, the plot, and the rating, IMDb rating. That will be the field type of decimal. Okay, save and exit. Let's add an object. We can leave ID a blank field. In that case, it will be filled automatically. Let's add a Pulp Fiction, year 1994, and who added the ID of the only user, admin. This user. Okay, let's see the second object. Let's add the Fight Club. Save, and we see the ID, and we see two objects in our data structure. Let's create an API endpoint for the table. We choose the data structure, then we name our method, our API endpoint, and provide a little description. Okay, then we shall set up so-called security layer. This is the condition on user's session. Let's remove all the conditions and make the data public. Then we choose fields, which will be available for GET requesting. Okay, save. We can see the response preview. That is the JSON which will be available in our front-end application, the response of our API method. We copy the name of the method, we copy the name of data structure here in our file mylist.js, and see the result. Here is the response of our API. Truly, our application is becoming alive.
It's alive!
And now we are going post data to database. We are posting data from the page recommend me a movie here, and let's create new data structure for the objects from our front end. Name it movie recommendations, and we need to configure the fields of that new structure. We are adding the title, type of string, then the year, a link to the user. We are choosing the data structure, app user, system name, web user, and the description, the personal recommendation. Okay. And then we need to create new API endpoint for writing data into that new structure. We choose structure movie recommendation, name the method post movie, and compose a little description. We will keep that condition on user ID because we need the data to be available for posting only from authorized users. Then we choose the fields for get requesting and for post requesting, all the fields except ID, and okay, save the data. And here we choose add.js file and see the similar construction. We copy and paste the name of the method and the name of the data structure here to the file. Here we see the hooks for handling state, the function for post requesting to the database, and the form itself. There is only one input field here. We can add a couple of more. And we need to indicate the fields, the system names of the fields where we are going to write the data. Let's copy one more. We will write 3 properties. First, title, year, and the recommendation. The system name description. And now for usability, we should add placeholders. We will ask, why do you recommend the movie? Then the movie year and the movie title. We have added 3 fields, but there is one more, user ID, and we will fill it automatically. Here we can see the use state hooks for handling state response, status, bad request, loading. All these constants are states of our form. And we need form payload. We can add the default state of that payload and we include there the user ID. We use authorization context here, and this will add user ID into our payload. Here we see everything is correct. Let's try to submit again, and there is no field user ID. Let's figure out why. This is the form. Then here we process the success. Here we process the error, and this button resets the form. It calls the function reset form. This function resets the payload to empty value, and here we need to add our default value, including user ID. Moreover, we are going to add validation on API layer. Let's make the condition that the title is not null. Let's save the condition and save the API endpoint and try to send the wrong payload with empty title and then with not empty title. We see the success. Let's look at the database. Here, database section, our structure movie recommendations, and there are 3 objects that we have posted.
Good job.
Let's make our tables nice looking. Here we see the simple JSON. Let's create a table. We are going to mylist.js. Here we see the API response, and we need to create a new component. We will reuse it, so better to create a component, table.js and table CSS at once. Then in table component we are importing React from React, not React Router DOM. Then we're importing CSS file, table CSS. And we are writing functional component table with some props. Props will include such parameters as page size and the parameters of the request itself. And then let's move all the code for get request to the new component. We can cut it from here and paste it here to the table component. Also, we shall import use effect. We shall import the Directual API, and all these parameters we can simply copy and paste it to the table component, fixing the path to the auth.js and to the loader component. Okay, and moreover, these constants are data structure in API endpoint. Let's take it from props. We fix it here, and we can fix it right here as well. And moreover, there is a constant page size. By default, it equals to 10. We can check whether props include page size. If the props include page size, we will set it equals to the value from props. Otherwise, we will set it equals to 10. Okay, let's move that piece of code, the work with API response, inside the table component. And here we paste table. Yes, here. And this string should be back here. Okay. And this way. Okay. We're importing our new component table to the mylist.js file. And we can remove the imports that we don't need. Here we see an exception, and sure, here we must add a wrapper, an element, because we are dealing with JSX. And the piece of code should be in one wrapper element. That way. Okay. Probably we added these props as strings. Yes, we should remove quotes. Okay, that way. and we are adding data structure and data NPI endpoint as props to our component. Let's copy one more time from the platform the name of the method of API endpoint here, and the name of the data structure, movies. Okay, that works. And now we will create a table. We are composing table here, giving it a class. We'll use it in CSS. The header. There will be several columns. And the table body. We will map an array named payload, which we get from API. We will map to rows. We'll use function map, and each element of the array will be a row. Here, and several columns. And we use properties of row according to the system names from the database, the title. Then let's check the system names. Here they are: title, year, director, year, then user, and let's name these columns in the header: title, year, and who recommended. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, this is our table. And now we will work with its styles. We go to table CSS and compose the styles. Let the table be 100% wide. And I'm going to add one more wrapper because I want the table to be on a square with the padding. So we gave the class to wrapper. We are creating background, dark one. Okay, great. Then some padding, 15 pixels, and border radius. And then the table should be 100% wide as well. That way. Okay. Let's add styles for header, table header. We will use the same monospace font, Queer New, the bold font weight, the header will be green and a little bigger, say 16 pixels, a bit more bigger, 18. Okay, and let's make it transparent in order to not mess up it with the links. Now we'll add styles for cells, for regular cells on the table, add some padding and border on the top, transparent border. Oops, 1 pixel. Okay, and now we need to add a property to the table, border collapse in order to remove spaces between cells of the table. And we'll remove the border on the header. Okay, great. And one more, we need to remove these 100%. Okay, now it's correct. Let's style the header. We are going to the main CSS file, app CSS, and add a font family, our standard monospace, and some margins on the bottom. And let's add on top 10 pixels. Okay, good. And now let's add some information referring to the quantity of rows at the top of the table. Somewhere here, we see the information in page info variable, and we can add it here. Movies, page info, and the property. Let's see the table size. That is the quantity of the records in the table. Okay, and let's add a class for styling. Let it be transparent, 50%. Okay. Next, we will enrich incoming data using third-party API.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Let's Google where we can find any third-party API for enriching our data. We are Googling IMDb API and see the first link, Open Movie Database. I guess that is what we need. Let's look at the API key. We can get the free key up to 1000 requests per day. That is enough for us. Let's look at the methods and the parameters. Simple get requests. Here they are. And the parameters, they are two types of requests. The search request with the name of the film and the request with the ID. Let's test it using the tool named Postman. Very useful to test APIs with Postman. Okay, the API responds. So we can add some parameters. Let's add parameter S, search, and enter, say, Pulp Fiction. Search, and perfect. We see an array, and the first element in the array is the right one, the one that we need. And then let's try to search with the ID, IMDb ID, and we see plenty of information, including poster, director, actors. Cool. Wow. Okay, we'll enrich with that API our data, and we will use scenarios for that. Here it is our data structure, movie recommendations, and we will create scenario. That is a workflow logic for processing the data. It can work both in real time and in a scheduled manner. Let us name our new scenario process recommendations. It will work with the structure movie recommendations, and it will work in a real-time manner. Open the scenario and we see that is a logic with steps. It could be actions, conditions, integration steps. Let's add a couple of steps, HTTP request, and the comment near it. Commenting is very useful for handling with multiple scenarios and multiple steps, like in a traditional coding. And here, HTTP request, we can request our API. We copy and paste get request right here. And we need to add a new field in our data structure that we work with to save the response of our API. We are going to configure in the fields of movie recommendations and add API response, the new property of the object, and the type of that property should be JSON, because API gives us the JSON message. Okay, save. Here we will add the title. We can use the properties of the object. Also, we choose the field for response. And now let's test the scenario. We can push the object to scenario, but firstly, let's add a title. Let it be the French film Léon. Copy the ID, the object ID. Go to debug scenario and push that object to the scenario. Let's look at the object and nothing has happened. Let's figure out why. Look at the logs and the error occurred. The error occurred because we missed the sign and the sign. Okay, save, and we can test one more time. Paste the ID and look at the object, and here it is, the response of our API, the JSON. Let's try to add a new field, another title, and test one more time. Okay, test, debug, and see nothing has changed. Some error happened. Let's figure out what error has happened. And it happened because we paste title with a space. We should encode space before working with the HTTP request. Add one more comment, encoding spaces in the title. And add the new step, editing object. We choose the field to edit, title, turn on the evaluating the expression in order to turn on the executing JavaScript, and insert the function and code URI and the field of the object title. Let's try one more time. And okay, that works. We see the right response from our API. Okay, now let's parse our JSON. We add a new step, edit object, and let's investigate the JSON. We'll open it with some online viewer. Okay, and here we see an array, and the first element of an array is one we need. And we choose the the field to edit. We don't have that field. Let's configure the structure. So we add several fields, including IMDb ID. We will connect to API with 2 steps. The first step will be getting IMDb ID, and the second step will be getting the data. So we edit that field, IMDb ID, choose the field response API. We shall turn on executing the JavaScript because we are dealing with JSON. And here it is, the ID inside the first element of an array search. We go to search, first element, number 0, and then the property IMDb ID. And let's test once again. Okay, here it is, the ID. Everything works fine. Okay, publish this scenario. No, it's too early to publish. We need to add a condition here to this scenario. We will add the new field. Let's name it isValid. We will set it field to true if we have found IMDb ID is valid, and the type of boolean, true or false. Alright, and we're configuring the condition, so we choose the first field, IMDb ID, and the condition is not null. And if yes, we will set the field is valid to true. And if no, we will set the field to false. Okay. And then we are adding a comment, then we shall throw an error on our front end. That scenario will work synchronically. A bit later we will see the details, what is running synchronically. And if everything is okay, we will create the new object in movies data structure, and we will create it with ID equals to IMDb ID. That will be very useful. And then we have to write the link to that structure inside our object. And we can convert the type of IMDb ID to link. That will be the link to movies data structure. That way, try to save, and an error. We can't change the field type if there are objects with the data in that field. So we deleted the object, and now we can convert the type of the field. Link to movies. Save and exit, and go to the scenario. Here we choose the field to write the link to the new object. And then we are mapping the fields of our current object, which is under the processing in the scenario, and the new object, movie. So we copy the information from the field who added user ID to who recommended. save and exit from this scenario. And as usual, we are adding the comment. That is a good coding style. Scenario is ready. Publish it and run. Okay, and we are ready to test it. But before that, we must edit API endpoint. We are adding the new field for GET requesting, and we certainly need to select the scenario for running synchronically for that API endpoint. It will run each time the frontend posts an object to that API endpoint. Let's submit the Godfather, and we see that Godfather is valid. We have found IMDb ID for the Godfather. Here it is. And a new empty object has been created. We will fill out that object on the second step of our API integration. But firstly, we forgot to add the recommendation text to the movies. From the submission, we add a field and we edit the scenario. We open it, go to editing mode, and add one more field for mapping. We choose recommendation, and here the field description from the form. Okay, insert, save and publish. And now let's process their API response in our web page in add.js. We are adding here the new condition, the condition on response, and response is valid. And we add not is valid, so here we process an error. And let's add the message that the world does not know such a movie. Okay, and a wrapper div with the class error. And here as well we add the condition to response, but with a positive option. Let's test, adding the Dark Knight, the cool movie. And the error, the world does not know such a movie. Let's figure out why. And that happens because the response is an array, and we must indicate the number of element, the number 0. Let's try another movie, 12 Angry Men, the curious one. And everything works fine. Okay. And here we see 3 objects that we have just added. Okay, further we will enrich the objects from movie lists. These 3. They are blank now, and we are going to create new scenario. That scenario will work in real time. Let's name it Enriching data. then the target structure will be movies, not movie recommendations, and the trigger type real-time new. It will process each and every new object from movies data structure. And actually we don't need any triggers in our first scenario because it runs synchronically. So we remove triggers from the start step and publish one more time. Alright. Check one more time the API endpoint. Here it is. The option that we are running that scenario synchronically each and every time. Go to the second scenario. Here we will apply the same step, HTTP request, and that step requires the field for the response, for the API response, and we go to the movies data structure and let's add a new group of fields, technical fields, and the property itself, API response. And apparently the type of that API response should be JSON. Okay, save and go to the scenario. We can copy and paste the URL of API from the first scenario. We go to that step, copying their URL and pasting here, and indicate that the request is get type. You can remove S parameter and add I parameter and insert ID because we are using IMDb ID as an IDE. And then we will parse the JSON. The API response we will write into the title field. We turn on the evaluating SJS expression and let's sure that the name of the property is title, and we type API response, that is a JSON field, and dot title. And in a similar way we will parse the year. Here it is, the year. Then rating. We find it here, IMDb rating. Then one more action, parsing the plot. Don't forget to turn on their JavaScript execution. Here, plot. One more director. Director Quentin Tarantino. And one more, actors. Absolutely the same way. Let's test the scenario using debug features. Let's take one of these movies. We'll remove test objects that we have added. Let's take that one for testing, copy the object ID and paste it here. Let's check. Okay, everything is great. We have got all the information. And we have forgotten the very important field, the poster. We will put it on our page, on our website. And the seventh action, we will fill the poster field from API response. It is called here, poster. Okay, and test one more time. and we see the poster. Okay, let's enrich the second object manually as well through debug. Okay, everything works correctly. Okay, there are two objects with all the data, and now let's try to test from the form. Let's add Fight Club, the inspiring piece, and we can indicate the year, but we don't use the year at all that we get from the form. We should add it into our API request. And now let's see watched, and here is the object, but it was not filled with a scenario because we haven't published and started this scenario. So that is the common mistake. Okay, we have published and have started this scenario. Here the blank object, and let's try one more time to add Fight Club. It was submitted, okay, and nothing has happened. That was because this scenario triggers on new objects, but we already have the object. We see there is the trigger type new, real-time new, and we can delete an object, a blank object from the movie's data structure, and create it one more time from our recommendation form. The Fight Club, okay, and here we see all the information. And now, as I have said before, let's add one more parameter to our search request, the year. It could be useful. Y equals to year in double curly braces. Publish and start. And let's try another Pulp Fiction from 2002. That was a valid request. And here is another movie about Pulp Fiction, The Facts, from the year 2002. And now we are going to add additional information to our table, including poster, director, actors, and so on. So here we will add a poster, but we forgot to edit our API endpoint. We need to include new fields, new properties into the list for get requesting, available for get requesting. And here as well we see the user ID, and we will add the recommendation, the personal recommendation near the user ID. In that way, we will use that syntax. That is a standard JavaScript syntax. And here, the image with the source from the field and with a particular class. Okay, recommendation, role recommendation, of course. Okay, great. And let's add styles for our small poster and make it really small, not so huge. The height could be 50 pixels or a little bit bigger, 70 pixels. Okay, very good. And now let's add a couple of more fields, couple of more columns, including director, actors, in the title and in the body of the table. And the year will be in parentheses near the title. That would be great. Here he's director, actors, and let's check. Okay, but we don't need the year here in the header. Okay, perfect. That looks good. Okay, let's remove the pieces of code that we don't need. And now we can beautify the paging. Let's add here the page size 2 for developing purposes, to be able to change pages. Okay, it works, but I don't like the styling of the buttons. The buttons are disabled, but we shall add a class with a similar construction. If the page number is 0, if the previous button disabled, and if the page is the last, the next button is disabled as well. And here we add the class disabled to the button. Let it be transparent. Okay, and the cursor pointer. Okay, that works great. We can remove this piece of code, we don't need it. And add a little margin between the table and the buttons. Here, margin bottom 10 pixels. Okay, very good. Okay, let's set the page size to 10 back. And now we are going to set up the second page to watch. All the objects from the form will go to that list. We can copy the code from watched and rename the component and edit the header that way. Okay. And we need to edit the endpoint. We will create the other endpoint, which will provide us with the movies that we have already watched. And first of all, we are going to structure movies, and we are adding the new field is watched. That is a flag type of boolean. If it is true, that means that we have watched the film. And one more field, my rating, from 1 to 5, type of number. Okay, we are going to the API endpoint. We must add new fields to the list available for GET requesting. And we create the new API endpoint for getting watched movies, for getting movies to watch. Here it is, the method name, the description, the security layer. We remove all the conditions to make the data public, and we can select all the fields except non-relevant. For example, who created and date of creation. Okay, and very important that we add a filter. We choose the field is watched and it should not be equal to true. And optionally we can set up the sorting by IMDb rating. And here as well, at the first API endpoint, we must add a filter that is watched equals to true, and optionally the sorting. And we go to the data structure movies. Here we see there are 4 objects, and let's edit 2 of them. Set the flag is watched to true and the rating to some value. And the second object as well there is watched true and my rating say 4. Okay, check here. Here we see 2 objects and here 2. Good. Now we will add the rating in our table. Let's add the header, my rating, and the column. Row and dot, my rating, the system name of that field. Okay, here it is, the rating. And we don't need that column into watch list. Let's add a condition on the props watched. That way in the header and in the similar way in the table. And then we add the property watched to the component. Here we don't see and here I see. Alright. And now that would be cool if the rating was not a number but a stars, for example. And here we are adding a condition. If the rating equals to 5, we will display this 5 stars. And in a similar way, we will add 4 stars, 3 stars, etc. Let's edit the quantity of stars, 3, 2, 1, and the condition. Now we can check. Perfect. Okay, alright. Let's add a movie. Inception, for example. 2010. And some personal comment. And we need to beautify the answer. So we go to add.js. We don't need the JSON display here. We just put here a thank you for the submission. Okay, the movie has been added. Inception by Christopher Nolan. To the right list, of course. And now let's add more functionality for handling the doubles. We don't need to add doubles. Moreover, we need to throw an error, so we add in a new field to the structure movie recommendation, name it error message. We will specify why are we rejecting the submission, the simple string field. Here we will move the step where we set the property is valid to false, add an error message for the first condition that we did not find the ID. That means that we don't know such a movie, no such movie found. That will be an error text, an error message. And the second condition will check the double. Here we add one more condition step, and set it up. We choose the IMDb ID, go to the link and choose the ID. And if that ID is not null, that means that we already have had such an object and we don't need to create one more. That means that we already have the movie in the list. And if ID is null, that means that there is no such an object. Add a comment, check the double. And then here we added the field error message. I already have that movie in the list. That is a double. Okay. And we connected with the step where we said is valid to false. Okay, we can publish the scenario. It is run. And let's try to add one more inception. Okay, submit, and an error, but we need to specify the text of error. So we need to connect our field error text with that message. Here we add, but before we need to add that field in the API endpoint. Here, the field for reading error message. Otherwise, we cannot read it. We don't need to write it, only for get requesting. And here we insert response without not error message. Okay, now let's try to add inception one more time. And that is the result. I already had that movie in the list. Okay, everything works fine. Next we will build signing up features.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Okay, let's look at their pages. Login and register. Here we see at the login page we see the small header with the path name. And let's add a header which depends on that path name. Here If that path name equals to add, that means that the user was redirected from add page. We will add the header similar to you have to be logged in to recommend a movie, so we are explaining why the user has been redirected to that page. And if redirect didn't happen, we would say just login. So delete the piece that we don't need. And probably the header should be a little shorter. Just please log in to recommend a movie. Okay, great. Okay, let's set up register page. We're going to register.js. Here, okay, this is the form. And we need to create the new data structure, requests for registration. Let's naming requests, register requests. Alright, and configure the fields. There will be the following fields: email, name, Twitter, password, repeat password, then add custom display names, and one more, the link to the user, which will be created. It will be the link to the structure app users, system name web users. Okay, alright. And now we add API endpoint for posting new objects to that structure, to the structure register requests. Let it be the method name register, the short description, API layer with no conditions, because not registered users will submit that form. So we choose the fields available for posting. Okay, let's connect that API endpoint to our frontend, to our register.js page. Here we copy and paste the name of the method and the name of data structure, the standard operations. Okay, let's add more fields. It will be several fields for email, for name, Twitter, and for the password. Let's check their system names in order to not make a mistake. Name, email, Twitter, pass. The similar way that we applied while we was creating the form for submitting, we changed this form. The inputs with the passwords should be type password. And now we need to install the new package, because we need to convert passwords to encrypt passwords on the go. We're installing MD5 package from npm. Here it is installing, and let's look at the documentation of that module, MD5 hash. So it is very simple. We import it at the top of the file and type only MD5 and string to encrypt it. Here we will add to the payload MD5 at once. Now we need to start the project once again. We stopped it before installed. And let's delete the comments, we don't need them. Adding the placeholders, email, name, Twitter. Okay. And here the Twitter will be the third, and here the name of the person. Okay. The placeholder for password. And repeat password. Okay, alright. And now that would be great to add a sign at before Twitter account. So we go to our form and add a class. To the input, let it be class Twitter. And a small tip that I'll tweet a thank you. And similar tip we will put near the email. That email will be the login, the username. Okay, perfect. I go into CSS, app CSS for example, and here we create the styling for Twitter, and we use pseudo class before to add a content, sign at. Let's see, and nothing happens. That happened because input is a peculiar element, and we cannot apply pseudo class before on the input. So we should create a wrapper div and add a class Twitter to that div. Okay, we see the add sign, and let's create the styling to put it in one row. That will be styling not for before but for Twitter. Okay, better. Then we are adding align items center for the flex element. Okay, good. But it would be better if the sign was dark and was on the input, inside it. So we put the position absolute to that sign before, and we put the position relative to the Twitter. Okay, great, and we will add some paddings into input. We set the width for all the inputs to 200 pixels, then padding for that particular Twitter input 20 pixels to the left and the width to 190 pixels. Okay, that looks good, and we should fix the margin somehow. Here we have added a margin, and the tip must have a margin too. -5 pixels. Okay. Yes, that looks good. Okay, we see that it worked out. And now let's create this scenario which will check the conditions on the fields from that register form. That will be the synchronic scenario, and let's create the group of scenarios. That will be more useful, and then we are creating a new scenario. Let's name it request processing. It works with registration requests. We can specify that the scenario is synchronic just for usability. Okay, and let's create the conditions, the validation on API layer itself. Oh, we have a typo. We have missed the word S. That is not critical, but let's fix here and here. Okay. And here we add in validation to the passwords that the password is not null. That means that the user has entered something into the field. Okay, Twitter can be null, it's okay. Then the name and email should be fulfilled. Alright, okay, save, and we are saving the API endpoint. Let's test. Okay, we see their response that okay, it works correctly. Then we are going to scenario, and let's set up the checking in our scenario. So the first step will be checking the passwords, that passwords match each other. The condition step here, okay. And we look at the password field, and that it equals to repeat password, not equals. If not, we will throw an error. And here we need one more field for the text of error. We're going to the configuring the fields, add as usual is valid, boolean type, and error message, the string type. And here we choose the error message and type that passwords do not match. That is an error. And the next step, we will reuse it from other branches. We set the parameter is valid to false. Okay. Next condition. And a comment at once. That email format is wrong, so we will check the format for email. If the format is wrong, we enter the message in error field here, and the next step is valid to false. Here we choose the email and the operator regular expression. Let's check out the documentation for the platform. Here we see the regexp cheat sheet and the expression for checking email format. We can copy and paste it here. Pretty easy. And the next step, we will check the double. So first of all, we will write the email to the field user ID. We will use emails as IDs, and then we check whether their object exists or not, in a similar way that we did previously while checking doubles for movies, for recommendations. We choose ID, go to the link and check whether the ID is null. If it is not, that the user already exists and we don't need to register him. Okay. And if there is no such a user, we can put the parameter is valid to true and publish this scenario. Okay, publish and run. Then we are going to API section, to the API endpoint, register, and we need to add new fields for reading. We don't add them for posting because we don't need to post these fields. Okay, save and exit, and let's test our form. We are filling all the fields and see that nothing has happened. Let's look at this scenario, at the logs, and we see that no objects were run through that scenario. Apparently we did not add the scenario into the API endpoint to scenarios for sync running. Let's check. Submit and success. Error, passwords do not match. Is valid false. And now let's configure the processing of the response of the error. Here in register.js, we go to the block where we work with response. Here, and we will edit the button of sending again, name it edit my data, and change the function from reset form to edit form, because the function reset form resets the whole payload, but we should keep the data that user already entered. Here we deleted the reset of the payload. And here we add the check for isValid parameter. Here response and response. The first element is valid equals true. If yes, we are providing the user with the link to the sign-in page, login page. Okay, here. Here, at end. And we need to import link from from React Row to DOM. Alright. Just login. That is it. And add one more condition where we will process invalid response. We add a class name error and a message that something went wrong, and the text of that response error text, error message. Check. One more time, check. Okay, password do not match. It works. And now let's keep the value that we entered before resetting the form. We already removed the resetting of the payload, and let's add that payload to the values of the input. Here several times for email, name, Twitter account. And let's try to add that for password. Okay, let's try, and we have a typo. Let's fix it. That way. Find and replace. Okay. Try and... Okay, the name of the stage is form payload. Here. And here. Testing. Password, and something went wrong. That happens because we are converting to MD5 on the go, so we must remove that value from here. Try an error. Edit my data and everything kept. Okay. Try one more time. Passwords do not match. And then email format. And OK, success. Next, we will build another scenario which will create objects in app user's data structure. We could do it from this synchronic scenario, but let's try another format. We will create a regular real-time scenario which triggers on the change in the object from registration requests data structure. Okay, we are going to scenarios and we create new scenario. Register new app user. It triggers when their object from registration requests have been changed and the particular field was changed, is valid. The first step, we are checking whether the request was valid, is valid equals to true. And the second step, we create new object in app users web user structure, and we will create it with a particular ID, with ID equals to email. We chose email to be an ID, and then we are going to map the fields, and we need to add these fields first. Here at least we add name, a simple string, and Twitter. also a simple string. Alright. Here we map the field name from object web user to the field name from the object registration request, and the Twitter from web user to Twitter from object registration request. Okay. And apparently the password. We write the password from registration request to the password from web user. Okay, publish and run. Let's try to sign up from the form, filling out all the fields, and okay, we have signed up. Trying to sign in. And something went wrong. Let's figure out. We are going to look at the logs, and the logs are empty. And there is a peculiarity. We go to synchronic scenario and edit it and see that the event generates only if we turn that option on. If it was turned on by default, it would be an avalanche of events, so we need to turn it on manually. Let's try one more time. We are signing up and sign in at once. Okay, that works perfectly. Let's try to recommend a movie. The Forrest Gump. I haven't seen, but I heard that the film is okay. Okay, and let's remove that brace. We don't need it. Okay. And now it would be great to edit this part. Now we are showing the ID. Let's show the name, the real name. And for that we go to API endpoint, moves to watch and movies watched, and we add additional fields for get requesting. Here we go to the linked object user and check the property name, and we do the same for the second API endpoint. Movies to watch, we go to the list of the fields for get requesting for the linked object user, and we check the user parameter name. And now we can add a new property name. Here it is. And we have one object without name, with empty field name and admin. Let's add a value. Let it be myself. For all the other users, that field will not be empty because it is required in our form. Okay, perfect. And one more, a little thing, we will add quotes here with backslash. And now it looks good. Let's create a good model window for a movie. Okay, now we are going to create the model window with the drop down underneath it. So we are creating a couple of components. The first component is model window, model. We're creating it once model JS and module CSS, the styles for the component. And the second component, drop down, half transparent element underneath model window. And by clicking the drop down, model window will be closed. Let's create a standard functional component. We import React from React. Then we import CSS file, drop down CSS, and writing the function drop down with props. We will transfer through the props the function of closing the model window, and we can at once use props on click. It will be called on click to the drop down, and compose the styles position fixed, 100% height and 100% width, and background black and transparent. Okay, so we go to table component, and here we will show the drop down by clicking on the title, and we need to introduce the new state, use state hook, model window. Through that state we will control the model window. Use state with null default value. Okay, and now we go to the table. Here the title, let's wrap it with the link with A, and by clicking on it we will change the state, we'll change the model window. So we're composing the arrow function and call set model window, and the value will be the ID of the element in this row ID. Okay, nothing has changed because we need to create a condition and add a drop down and model window. So we are composing the condition on model window. If model window equals to the current ID, to the ID of the current row, we will show drop down, and we add on click prop, which will call the state method set model window. It should be the arrow function as well. Set model window, and it sets the state to 0, to null. We also need to import the drop down component. Import drop down from components drop down. Okay, alright. Nothing happened. Let's look at the CSS. We have messed up. We have written the CSS in the wrong file, in modular CSS, not in drop down CSS. And now it should work. Also, I would love to add some styling to the link inside the table. Let it be underline while hovering, and the cursor should be pointer. That way. Click Click and click. That works perfectly. By clicking on drop-down, the drop-down disappears. But I guess so that buttons are over the drop-down. Let's add the property z-index to drop-down 1000 and now it's okay. The buttons are under the drop-down as well. Okay, let's create the new component, model window. At once put it here, model and the prop movie. And here we import in React, we import in CSS the standard actions. And creating and exporting at once the body of functional component model. There will be a div with two parts. The left part will be a poster and the right part will contain the information referring to the movie. And we are getting the information from props. Title, then year, next paragraph with no class, we don't need it. Director with the label props director, then similar one actors and plot. Alright, and poster will have the parameter style with the background. We'll put the image to the background. We're composing such a value, and let's check the name, system name of the field, poster lowercase, props poster URL. Okay. We will add some styling. The position will be fixed with a large z-index. Color as a background, some border radius, and let it put in the very center of the page. We are fixing the width and height. Position 50% left, 50% top, and we'll move the margins to the left and to the top with negative values, the half of its width and height respectively, and some shadow. Okay, and here in the table we have to import the new component model from model. Okay, let's check. Here it is, the model window. Let's figure out why the data is not displayed. First of all, we'll create styles for poster. We set the width and display flags, surely. Line items, stretch. Okay, here should be the poster. Let's inspect while we don't see it, because the URL is wrong. Here in model.js, props are right, movie, and here we have to type props.movie and then the property. That way, and here in the poster as well. Let's try OK. At least we see the poster. And we want the poster to not shrink. Stretch, and here flex shrink to 0. Okay, much better. And the border radius, left top and left bottom, 5 pixels. And then the second block, movie info. We are adding padding, okay, and the title, props movie as well, surely. And let's add a font family, our monospace and bright green color according our style. Adorable. And next, step by step, we are styling movie year. Here, let's make it lighter. Add opacity property, 60%. Okay. And the important information, IMDb rating. Here, IMDb. Let's check the system name. IMDb, we have a typo, IMDb, but doesn't matter. Let it be IMDb. Let's make it a little bigger. Font size, say 26 pixels, and opacity, 60%. It could be even more bigger, 38 pixels. And let it be gold, not gray. Okay, perfect. Then here, let's add a hint that this value is IMDb rating. Too significant. We'll add a span for correction. Okay, here. And the select IMDb rating span, the font size, some 20 pixels. Okay, much better. And the small fix for the span, p span, let's make it lighter as a label. P span, opacity 60%. Okay, perfect. Next we build features for rating.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Okay, now we will create features for rating here in model window. We're going to model.js and add here a new element. First of all, we will check the rating. If the rating is not null, we will show the div with the class name stars. I would like to display rating as a stars. If the rating is 5, we see 5 stars. If the rating is 4, we see 4 stars, and so on. We acted in a similar way when added the rating to the table. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and respectively 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 and 5. Okay, let's check. These are stars. And here we don't see any stars. It would be pretty if they were bigger. Let's compose their CSS, model window stars, and font size 30 pixels. And some margin 20 pixels. Okay, stars with the letter spacing 10 pixels. And we can add a text that this is rating, my rating. Here, too big. We shall move the property font size here to span this way and add a little padding here to our div, padding bottom 5 pixels. Okay, very good. Okay, now we'll create a feature for evaluating the film, for providing us with the rating. Here we compose the similar conditional, the opposite conditional, if is watched equals to false. We are showing that div with the class name rate this. But to handle the state, the rating, we will add the new state, the use state hook. We import it and we set it with the default value 0 rating, and here we compose the conditional. If rating is 0, we will show the message that we should rate this movie. And after that, text the buttons, and the buttons will have the shape of stars: 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, etc. So here. And the class name will depend on the state. If the state equals to 0, the class name will be active for the first star. If the rating equals to 2, the second star will have the class name active, and so on. And in order to change the state, we introduce here the function onMouseOver, onMouseEnter, and onMouseLeave. When the mouse enters, the rating sets to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 respectively, and when mouse leaves, the rating resets to 0. Let's check. Oh, something went wrong. Surely we should add 4 more texts, and let's add here the descriptions of the rating. 1, 2, 3, awful, bad, acceptable, good, and exceptional. Wonderful. And let's compose the styles at once. Here we add a selector to star, and the star will have opacity 20% by default, and active star will have an opacity 1. The active star is much brighter. And let's add a smooth transition here and here. Okay, it works right way. And now we shall make the stars bigger, at least, with their margin. Here the font size will be 30 pixels. Great. some spacing between stars, and a cursor pointer. And moreover, we shall add here operators greater or equal, because if we choose 3 stars should be active. That way, exactly. Now let's add a gold color to the text. Okay, now it looks very good. Now we are going to connect API. Let's create posting data to the database. We shall use here useState useEffect, then add all the necessary APIs manually. Here we are connecting API, Directual API, then work with the data structure and the endpoint. We will fill it out later. Then we connect authorization from the file auth.js. Use auth. Okay. Now let's check how it should be built in add.js. Let's copy these hooks in these states here. Alright, and let's add one more send. We will check whether the rate was sent or not, and false by default. This is the function of post request. Okay, and let's go to our stars. When we enter the mouse on the star, set form payload to my rating, to the first star, my rating 1 payload, and by clicking on the star we performing the post request, post data. We are calling that function in case of clicking. And we can copy that on click to each and every star. And respectively their on mouse center. Set rating 2, 3 to the state and to payload 4 and 5. Alright. And here we shall add one more condition to send, that the form was not sent and not loading here, and the condition for the element for the text when the form was sent. Here we set the state sent to true when API request was successful. Here sent and okay, the movie has been rated. Lovely. And add loading standard loader. Okay, the exception, data structure endpoint. Oh yes, we have to type let here because these are variables, and this piece of code we don't need. Okay, let's try. loading and something doesn't work. Let's see in the console. We see 404, and of course we haven't created any API endpoint. Let's create one. API endpoint for movies, for rating movies. Add some name, description, and we don't delete the condition, we add a condition on security layer that the role of the user who deals with that API method is admin. So nobody can edit movies except of admin. And we choose only 2 fields for editing, 3 fields, because we pick the ID as well. Okay, here rate movies to the variables. And here in the payload, we adding by default is watched true and ID, the current ID. We can get it from props movie ID. So we will not create new element, new object. We will edit existing one, which has the particular ID. And now let's try to rate the movie. Okay, the movie has been rated. Let's check it in the watched list. Okay, here it is. And we should fix that one as well. I don't want to re-rate movies. And moreover, the films should be deleted from their list to watch without reloading the page. And I guess that we can handle it with using useState hook. Here we useEffect hook. We add useEffect here, and each time something happened, we will get the fresh data. Let's try. So I don't know why it is loading so slowly. We will check it out. Okay. I don't see the movie here, and I see the movie in the first list. Okay, that works correctly. And now let's add some additional conditions here. Is watched, we just made it typo. Here, watched. Let's reload. Very slow. We'll figure out why a bit later. Okay, 5 stars. And to watch, The Lion King, 5 stars. Okay. It has been moved to the first list with a rating equals to 5. And now I have signed out, but still I see the stars for rating. So we have to add additional conditions here, the conditional on user session, auth context, and we will use auth context has role. Here it is, the auth context. We add it here. Auth context has role admin. Okay, let's try, and everything is right. Let's try to sign in under the user who is not an admin. And I neither see the stars. That would be prettier if there were some explanations. So here I put the condition that the user has been authorized, but he's not an admin. Is authorized but not has role. And I see that only the list owner can rate the movie. Okay. And here it is. And we can add a class to make it prettier. Hint here and here. Model window, hint, let it be lighter margin and opacity. Okay, very good. And another condition, I don't want to see that paragraph if the movie has been rated. So here. And the movie was not rated. Let's figure out why loading became so slow.
Houston, we have a problem.
So let's look. We added that useEffect function, and after that, the process of loading became very slow. Let's look at the console, and to make it clear, we will add here console log requesting this way. Okay. Oh, exception. And surely we need to add it here before API. Okay, let's go and check the console, and oh fuck, that is a request avalanche. Okay, let's comment this useEffect function for a while and see what happens now. We see one reload, one request. That is the right way of behavior. And such a quantity of requests is not good because we can hit the limits in the platform. Here we have 10k limits for the free plan, and we have consumed 3000 already, so that is not good. Better create a separate function, handle reload. This function will call getData, and we will call this function manually from our component. We will add one more prop, handle reload, here. And here we will call that function, handle reload, from the request, after the request has been happened. Okay, let's try to evaluate the movie. One request and the movie disappeared from the list. Alright. Next, we will add sorting to our table. Here we have the default sorting setting up in the API endpoint, and let's add some buttons where we would choose the type of sorting. Here, add a div table sorting and 3 buttons. Sort options. The first, we will sort by date changed, then by my rating and by IMDb rating. Moreover, the sorting by my rating will be available only for watched list. So here we see 3 and here we see 2. Everything is right. Now we'll configure the CSS of these buttons. The container will have flex property, margin, and we will add background color to buttons, some paddings, margins, this way. And one of these buttons should be active. At least one sorting should be selected. Active option will have a green background and dark color of the text. Okay. Let the first be active. Date changed. Okay. Next, we will add one more state. Use state hook sort option with the default value of the system name, date created. That is a system field, and system name is starting with @ symbol. Here, date changed, the default sorting option. And here in our GET request, we can also add some queue params, including sorting. Here we see the hint in the comment. Sort option, and we should add descending or ascending. Let it be descending by default. Okay, let's see here, and I guess that it is correct. The data is sorted by date changed. And now we add here on click, and on click will change the sort option. The first button to date changed, the second button to my rating, the system name of the field my rating, and the last one IMDb rating. Remember, we have a typo. We have the system name IMBD. That doesn't matter, but just pay attention to that. Okay. And here we will handle the class name active depending on the sort option. If the sort option that one, date changed, then the first button will be active, and so on for the second and for the third buttons. Let's try and an exception. And this is a typical mistake. We have to use arrow functions instead of direct hook call. This way. Okay, let's try. It does not work. Because we need to update the render and use effect similar to paging, not for all changes, but for changing the sort option only. And that works now. Marvelous. That would be great to add IMDb rating as well to the table, because we have such an option for sorting. Here, after actors, we will add IMDb rating. Okay, perfect. And the last feature for the tutorial, we will add integration with the Twitter. Each time an admin rates the movie, their system should tweet "thank you." So here we see that a user has a Twitter account, and let's add a movie, Snatch by Guy Ritchie. Okay, successfully added. Here it is. And let's create object each time the movie was rated. So we go to the platform scenarios section, new scenario, thank for the movie, target data structure movies, and the trigger real-time changed. We will create an object each time the field watched by me was changed from false to true. Here we add a condition. We check that is watched true. And if yes, we will check the score, the rating. Was it good or bad? If the rating is higher than 3, that means that the movie was good, and if the rating lower than 3, that means that the movie was bad. As usually, we add comments to our scenarios. Okay, here good and bad. And let's create new structure and name it thank you. We will create the objects in this structure. Thank you. And there will be 3 fields: ID, then whom to thank, the link to the web user, the link to app user. Here we choose, and the text, the tweet, the message of our tweet, the string. And we go back to scenario here, and we'll create an object in this structure, thank you, and add a field whom to thank: the user, who recommended, who added here, and then the second parameter, the message. Here we can compose something similar to dear friend. Here we will insert the field of connected object, user ID dot name, user, dear user, that was good film, such a fun to watch a film, thank you. And here as well we insert the name of the film, the title. So this is a mechanism of templating on the platform. Okay. Save, and in a similar way we create another object if the rating was low. Whom to thank, who added, user ID, and the second, the message, and we will communicate that the film was not good. So we insert the name, user ID dot name, in double curly braces, the movie, we insert the name of the movie, the title. Here we are. The movie was not good at all, appeared to be not so good. Okay, save and publish and run this scenario. And let's try to rate that movie, Snatch. In order to do this, we sign in as an admin. Alright, and here to watch, Snatch and rate it. Wonderful. Okay, everything works. The film has been rated here, and the rating is correct, 5. And we see the logs that everything was okay. And here it is, the object. Dear Pavel, that was such a fun to watch movie Snatch. Marvelous. Then we are going to create a new scenario, which will tweet each time the new object has been created. The trigger real-time new, and the structure thank you. Alright, and there will be one step, integration step, through the Zapier. We will add this option, and here we go to Zapier and finds here Directual. We choose an account. Here we need to add app ID and app secret. We can find it in API section. We need to enter our password to see the app secret. So here we paste app ID and app secret. We can find the detailed instruction referring to Zapier on Directual.com in integration section. And now we have connected. Then we choose the particular scenario, and note that there is mode editing. Don't forget to switch to running mode later. Here we add a couple of parameters to be sent to Zapier, account and message. And here we add according template engine, whom Twitter and message. As usual, in double curly braces. Here we go to Zapier test, and we see these two parameters, account and message. Continue, and then we setting up Twitter. We choose an account, connect to our account in Twitter. That one, yes. And then we setting up the message to be posted on Twitter account and the message. Continue. OK. And turn it on. Alright. And here we see the tweet. Don't forget to switch here the scenario to mode running to the production. That is very important, and it works perfectly. And the final step, we will create Docker container. Let's go to the manual and see the final step, the fifth. And here we find the steps. First of all, we need to create a Docker file in root directory. Here we compose in the Docker file and we copy and paste this text. Okay, alright. And then we need to create proxy server. In other words, we are creating the folder server and the file server.js in this folder. And we paste the code here. Alright, then we go to terminal and Docker build the name of the container and then space dot. That is important. Alright. The Docker is composing and success. And then we can run our image, our Docker. We type Docker run and then we inserting our app ID. At the very beginning we copied it into env file and then the name of the Docker. And success, the image has been run and we can open the localhost 8080 and here we are.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.